Mayor Sella, I also include the city, the planning commission or not in the meeting. Okay. Good evening. The City Council of Riverbank and the local redevelopment authority board meetings are now in session. Today is Tuesday, February 27th, 2024. It is 6 p.m. Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Father God, we just once again want to come before you tonight and want to thank you for this great city of Riverbank. Father, we thank you for this platform in this city council meeting where the residents and those that are involved are able to share concerns and open up and express themselves, Lord, in an environment which is a place where their voice is being heard. God, I pray, Father, for the council tonight. Lord, I pray that just wisdom would be bestowed upon this meeting, that, Lord, we are not trying to do things in our own strength, but we acknowledge that apart from you, we can do nothing. But if we remain in you, you will remain in us and we will bear much fruit. I just want to give you all the glory for what's going to happen tonight. And we thank you for it in Jesus' name. Amen.
Please be seated. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Uribe?
Here.
Councilmember Hernandez? Here. Councilmember Barbara Martinez? Here. Vice Mayor Jones Cruz? Here. Mayor O'Brien?
Here.
Planning Commissioners? Chair Jones Stewart is absent. Chair Zamora is absent. Commissioner Dinan? Commissioner Halterman?
Here.
Commissioner Bassa? Alternate Commissioner Link?
Here.
Alternate Commissioner Rubin?
Thank you. There will be no changes to the agenda tonight. Any council or authority member or staff who has a direct conflict of interest on any scheduled agenda item to be considered is to declare the conflict at this time. Seeing none, we'll proceed to public comment. At this time, members of the public may comment on items not appearing on the agenda and within the subject matter jurisdiction of the City Council LRA Board. Individual comments will be limited to a maximum of 3 minutes, and time cannot be yielded to another person. Under state law, matters presented during the public comment period cannot be discussed or acted upon. Just a reminder, we will be having a presentation on the River Walk, so those comments will be reserved for that time. Is there anyone from the public wishing to comment?
My name is Jamie Agers. I live at 7730 McHenry Avenue, Modesto. I'm requesting that consent item 9.5 resolution authorizing the allocation of $44,100 from the general fund reserves for translation services related to the Riverwalk draft environmental impact report be pulled so that I can speak to the item, and there may be others here this evening who would like to speak to it as well. Thank you.
My name is Harvey Merkerson. I own property at 5848 Terminal Avenue, Riverbank, California. United States citizen, tax-paying, all that good stuff, a citizen. So I am grateful for the prayer because I feel like my voice has not been heard. Voiceless because somehow I don't feel like a citizen of these great United States of America deposited here in Stanislaus County with Riverbank and Riverbank collaboration with other people in the community. I will speak from a slippery slope. I know I have 3 minutes. I say slippery. I did what I should done as a citizen, a resident of Riverbank, California, Stanislaus County. Yes. On January 24th, when I got up out of my house, went outside, do what I do, my neighbors are waiting for me. My neighbors, woohoo, they're waiting. Woohoo. I'm like, hey, no, your car got hit while you were asleep. Your car got hit. Oh, okay. Hey, look on the window. My God, the police were there. They left the car for you. Okay, Harvey. I have AAA insurance. I'm going to go to Enterprise. They're not that expensive, but I go to the AAA. Anyway, I rent a car on that day, January 24th, because I'm a citizen, taxpaying, so I understand things happen. This is what you do. Everybody, I haven't done anything but just doing what I thought I should have done. And that's why it's slippery. So my car gets done maybe 2 weeks ago. Wait, I called AAA. Wait, the Alfred Matthews calls me and says, your car's ready. Bring your $500 deductible. Whoa, that's why it's slippery. I called AAA. AAA said, it's better if you get the police report. It's slippery. Well, I go down to the police, whatever it is over there, you know, the authorities, the one to serve. I went down there, I've been trying to get a police report from an incident that happened on January 24th. As a citizen, I still got to pay for the rental car. My car's still sitting down there. I'm still like, it's not litigation or mitigation, just, I don't know, I'm a citizen. Time's up. Oh, I'm quit. That's all. Thanks for being the voice of the voiceless.
Sir, if you could leave your contact information.
I will not. You are leadership. I spoke a word. I'm a concerned citizen.
Thank you
Please
very
stay.
much, sir.
Thank you.
Evening, members of the council. It's a privilege to be here tonight. Jacob Folder with Senator Marie Alvarado Gill's office. Just wanted to provide a brief legislative update. Senator introduced one new bill, the Wildfire Smoke and Health Outcomes Data Act. This would maintain a statewide integrated wildfire smoke and health data platform. This would better understand the negative health impacts on California's population caused by wildfire smoke and evaluate the investments in forest health and wildfire mitigation outcomes. Also, just wanted to let the community know today earlier from 4 to 5, I had my our mobile office hours in the Riverbank City Council chambers. We'll be doing these on a bi-monthly basis for the remainder of the year. So our next ones should be again from 4 to 5 p.m. in April. Right before the city council chambers. We'll be releasing more information on that on social media and be passing along to the city of Riverbank. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay, now we're going to move forward to the consent calendar, consisting of item 9.1, waive readings, 9.2, acceptance of the pavement restoration 2023 project and authorization to file a notice of completion. Item 9.3, acceptance of the Topeka Street Improvement Project and authorization to file a notice of completion. Item 9.4, Public Works Construction Standards Resolution to replace its entirety, City of Riverbank standard specifications, design standards, and standard plans for Section 5 water. Item 9.5, resolution authorizing the allocation of $44,100 from the general fund reserved for translation services related to the Riverwalk draft environmental impact report. We have a request to pull item 9.5. I recommend that we do that and have one person come up and speak on that behalf. So is there any consideration for the others?
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the consent calendar minus item 9.5, which is being pulled.
And I'll second it with a quick comment. I know we have Second Street in dire need of a slurry seal, so I'll make a motion of that second.
We have a motion to approve in a section through item 9.4. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Uribe,
Yes.
Councilmember Hernandez,
Yes.
Councilmember Barbara Martinez,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Jones Cruz,
Yes.
Mayor O'Brien,
Yes.
motion passes 5-0.
Item 9.5. We have someone who would like to speak on this behalf.
Thank you, council members, for pulling this agenda item so that it could be addressed. I applaud the council for approving funds to be moved in order for translation services related to the Riverwalk Draft Environmental Impact Report. A couple of points and questions. One, I couldn't tell from the staff report whether both volumes 1 and 2 of the EIR would be translated. It spoke to the EIR. I think it's important that both volumes be translated. Volume 2 are the appendices to the EIR, and they are incorporated into the EIR reference. So if you could clarify that, that would be great. I'd also like to recommend that the comment period deadline be extended to 45 days from the date when the Spanish translation version is available and made to the public. Personally, I've been reviewing the EIR. I've spent an hour and a half to 2 hours a day for the last 2 weeks to try to get through it. It's highly technical in nature, which is difficult for the average citizen. And even after spending all of that time, I'm about 90% through it. So it would be unfair, in my opinion, to the Hispanic community to only be given a very limited amount of time. The staff report mentioned that the document would be available the first week of March, and comments are due March 18th. So that would allow them maybe 10 or 14 days at the most to review. And I think consideration should be given to extending the comment period. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there any comment on item 9.5?
So I'll make a couple comments here. I think it's important that we do actually move forward and authorize this so we can get this these translation service provided. It's going to better serve our residents so they have some access to these documents. The original cost was $60K, so they are giving us a deal on the turnaround. Even it's going to be close to about a month. Like Jamie stated, the specific plan will be available March 1st. Public comment period ends March 18th. So I think moving forward, when we are negotiating funding agreements, I think we as a council should push for an ordinance in place of these major projects. So that way it's translated and it's paid by the developers.
Any other comments?
That being said, I do agree we should extend at least the prorated amount of days for the review of the translated document.
I agree. I'd like to have that prorated, but the extension will apply only to those submitting it in Spanish or Spanish speaking, and not extending it for everyone. So we can start our mitigation process for those who have submitted it on time, if that is legally acceptable. That's acceptable. Okay, thank you. There was no comment, ma'am. Jeannie, no. All right, so we have a motion. Was that a second?
Yes.
Okay, we have a second. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Uribe,
Yes.
Councilmember Hernandez.
Yes.
Councilmember Barbara Martinez,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Jones Cruz,
Yes.
Mayor O'Brien,
Yes.
motion passes 5-0.
Item 10.1. Resolution approving the fiscal year 2023-24 mid-year budget amendments.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tammy L. Cantor, Assistant City Manager, will provide the staff report on this item.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm a little short for this podium. So I do have a PowerPoint presentation that they're bringing it up. We did do our annual mid-year budget review for 23-24. And with this review, it does provide us the opportunity to revisit our projections, that are made for the annual operating budget and adopted in June of 23. These adjustments are based on new information, emergency needs and or revenue and expenditure trends. Go ahead. I don't have a clicker unless you have one. Oh. Thank you.
If it's on, try turning it off and turning it back on.
Think so. Okay. Sorry about that. So we're making adjustments based on new information, emergency needs, and or revenue and expenditure trends. We provide departments the opportunity to request new appropriations for emergency projects, equipment that require immediate attention. I think it's the clicker. Because the light goes on and off on it.
Can we have someone do it manually?
Yeah. Okay, so our next slide is just a revenue graph, or a graph of our revenue and how it's grown over our years. And then the next slide, we are showing our changes that we are making in our general fund revenues. Our property tax are currently higher than anticipated. So we are increasing that. Sales tax, we have seen a drop in some of our retail sales tax. So based on the trend, there is a decrease there. And our vehicle license fee swap in property tax is increasing, building permits, we've seen an increase, and franchise fees. So we had originally budgeted 14.1 million and the amended budget is at 14.4 million. So it's an adjustment of 200,000. So next we'll go on to our expenditures. You can go ahead and select the next slide. So our expenditures, we have only a few in our general fund that we're going to highlight tonight. We did add an additional 25,000 for recruitment for our development services director based on a retirement. An increase in some litigation fees. Has been $1 million has been added. Stormwater, we are asking for almost 22,000 for an emergency repair to a storm line that's caused a sinkhole on Oakdale Road. And in our parks, we've seen an increase in pool chemical costs. So we're asking for 19,000 there. And then some of our park equipment and repairs, 8,000 for that in the general fund. So our original projected general fund expenditures were 15 million. The amended projection is at 16.1 million. So here is a graph that shows where we are overall with our general fund. So we have amended our beginning balance for the general fund based on the actuals from the prior year. And it shows you what our expenditures and revenues, and then our ending reserve. And while our expenditures that we've adjusted are higher than our revenues, we did increase in our reserve fund because of the true up of it. So the next slide is a picture of where we are estimating our general fund to be at the end of this current fiscal year. We have a starting balance of 8.8 million. Once you add the revenues and take out those expenditures, we're ending with a balance reserve of 7 million. So things that we will consider in our budget that we're getting ready to start for 24-25 is the continued property tax increase as a result of new development, and the potential of increase in our sales tax with the development of Crossroad West Commercial Center. And we will continue to evaluate department staffing, our CalPERS unfunded liability, any capital needs that have no other funding sources, and then funding the for operations of maintenance of effort, which comes from partly from the general fund for our streets and roads and the gas tax. So we're going to go on to our gas tax fund, and our beginning balance is estimated to be at 500,000. Revenues at 1.9, expenditures at 2.4. We're estimating that we will end the year in the negative of about $5,000. And then in our sewer fund, beginning reserve was amended to 8.8 million, revenues at 5.1, expenditures at 7.3, and an estimated ending reserve at 6.7 million. So that reserve includes future funding of our CIP projects. So in our water fund, we have a beginning reserve balance of 1.1 million, estimated revenues at 3.3, and expenditures at 3.8, with an estimated ending reserve balance at 591,000. So in this fund, you can see that our reserve balance is getting low there at 15%. So staff will be recommending a review of our current rates for rate study in this particular fund. And then our next fund is our public benefit fund. It has an estimated beginning balance or reserve of 1.4 million, estimated revenues of 385,000, expenditures 571, with our ending reserve of 1.2 million. So with this, and as I stated earlier, we'll begin our 24-25 budget process. So we'll include major expenditures that would continue the evaluation of staffing needs, space needs at City Hall, increasing costs and supplies and services, any deferred maintenance on city buildings and infrastructure, and evaluation of our equipment needs. So it's recommended that the council consider the following action, which is approve the mid-year budget amendments as presented. And I am available for any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Council, do you have any questions?
Just a couple quick questions here. I think in the public benefit fund, I think the council should probably consider either funding the community resource deputy or the camera system through the general fund. It's dwindling down until we start receiving some funding from, or some monies from Arise or the other cannabis businesses that's just down the street on 3rd Street. We're gonna be seeing a zero here pretty soon. So I think it's just something we should consider down the road.
Good point. Any others? like to point out just for everyone that the gas tax fund will continually decrease as we have more fuel efficient cars and we have more electrification of vehicles. That should be decreasing. And just not to get blindsided, but the state is looking at a vehicle miles traveled, where instead of a gas tax, that you'll be charged X amount per mile you drove based on the weight of your vehicle. So at the end of each year, you'd be presented a bill, just like you would for a registration. So be aware that that is being discussed right now. And we have Senator Gill's representative here. If you want to talk to him about it, I'm sure he'll be happy to. Is there any public comment on the mid-year review? Seeing none, I'll bring it back for.
I'm gonna ask one more question. I do think it's important we do this water rate study, but since we have some listening ears here, can you tell us why it's important to do?
So part of what our water rates cover are the maintenance of our system, our current system that's in place. So the water rates are meant to maintain our current system. And when we initially did our rate study back in 2015, we held off on putting in the because of the meter change out, there was a time period where we weren't billing on consumption. So we did lose some revenues during that time, and we thought we would gain those back and be able to go forward with our CIP plan, the 5-year CIP plan. We are still struggling to get those projects done. And so it's the importance of maintaining our system primarily why we would want to do that.
Would like to make a comment about our sewer system. So with all the new development that we have, how is our sewer system being affected with that? Is like a contingency plan in the sewer?
In regards to operations or funding side of it?
Probably both.
Both.
Yeah, I think.
So I
people
can't
wanna know.
really answer to the operations side of it. I'm not technically, I haven't heard of any concerns at this point. We do have developers, when they develop, they pay their fair share to put what their development is going to be the demand on our system. They are responsible for putting that infrastructure in. The rates are there to support the system as it gets used, right? So at this point, as far as I know, I believe that we are in good shape.
Hope so. Thank you.
Again, I brought it back.
I'll make a motion to approve item 10.1.
We have a motion to approve in a second on 10-1. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Uribe,
Yes.
Councilmember Hernandez,
Yes.
Councilmember Barbara Martinez,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Jones Cruz,
Yes.
Mayor O'Brien.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Item 11-1, a resolution of concurrence and support for the approval of the fiscal year 2024-25 annual action plan, AAP.
Mayor and Council, Leticia Ibanez, Housing Specialist for the City of Riverbank, will be providing the report on this item.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. I'm here to present the fiscal year 24-25 CDBG annual action plan. For the action plan for 24-25, it requires an annual review of projects to be funded with CDBG funds and an opportunity for the public to comment on the projects. And project funds must be spent in areas greater than 50% lower median income. And in front of you, you'll see the map, the legend, where it indicates the areas of the 50% greater of income in the gray section there. For the prior years of the project status, the Castleberg Park Trail that's located on Kentucky and 8th Street, the CDBG funds were used for that particular project, and that project has now been completed. The project for the ADA improvements, that project also has been completed. And then the next for the projects that we have in line would be the water and sewer line. That should be installation. That will be located in the alley between the Riverside Drive and High Street from 3017 High Street to Fourth. That's the Pioneer Park. That project is actually in progress right now. Pioneer Park ADA improvements that's located on First and High Street, that project has been canceled. So for fiscal year 24-25 annual action plan, what we're requesting is for support for the water and sewer line replacement. Which that's the location is in the alley between the Riverside Drive and High Street. Again, at 3017 High Street to 4th Street, that's the Pioneer Park. The current allocation that we currently have is 160,234. So for the total fiscal year for 24-25, we have 160,234 with a total of the 391,229. And that also, so to complete the fiscal year for 24-25 annual action plan for all the entities belonging to the consortium, they can be found on the Stanislaus County website. So recommendation for 24-25 CDBG annual action plan is 1, for allow for public comment. 2, consider adopting the resolution and the concurrence of the proposal project. And I'd also like to mention with the project, there's the project correction is to be water and sewer line replacement.
Thank you. From the council, are there any questions?
I'll just make a quick comment. Kudos to staff for bringing us the High Street project. We just saw a water balance fund of 500,000, which is super low. So please continue to prioritize those water projects that do qualify in those areas that we saw. That's the only project I'll be supporting.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Is there anyone from the public wishing to comment? Seeing none, I bring it back for consideration.
I'll make a motion to approve item 11.1.
I second the motion.
We have a motion to approve and a second on 11.1.
Councilmember Uribe,
Yes.
Councilmember Hernandez,
Yes.
Councilmember Barbara Martinez,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Jones Cruz,
Yes.
Mayor O'Brien,
Yes.
motion passes 5-0.
Item 11.2, presentation Riverwalk specific and draft environmental impact report.
Mayor and council, before bringing up Miguel Galvez, our contract planner, to give an introduction on this item, I do want to notify those that are Spanish speaking that we do have a translator, so I'll be saying that in Spanish at this moment. Para los residentes que necesitan traducción para el documento que vamos a ver ahorita, tenemos una traductora, ella tiene los documentos que vamos a revisar y le puede ayudar con la traducción. Muchas gracias.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council, city staff, members of the public. Miguel Galvez, Contract City Planner with the City of Riverbank. I'd like to take a moment to underscore the purpose of the presentation tonight on the Riverwalk specific plan and draft DIR. Let me start by stating that the Riverwalk project is not a city-initiated project. It is applicant-initiated. The city is responsible for processing the development applications, and that's part of the reason why we are here. One of those requirements is to have an independent environmental assessment of the project conducted. The environmental assessment commenced with a notice of preparation where responsible and trustee agencies were invited to help scope the environmental assessment. The application is now at a stage where the draft environmental assessment is available for public comment on the adequacy of the analysis that has been prepared. The item tonight is a presentation of the project and the environmental assessment, both specific plan and the EIR, as we call it. The City Council and the Planning Commission, who is also present here tonight, is only requested to hear the presentation. No formal action of the City Council is requested this evening. There is a formal process for submitting comments on both the specific plan and EIR. Once the comment period ends, the EIR consultant will evaluate them, respond to comments, and prepare a response to comments. Any changes to the draft DIR document will be reflected on a separate errata document that will be incorporated as the overall environmental assessment for this project. The city will schedule separate public hearings at both the Planning Commission and City Council for their consideration once this item is brought before them, once the project is ready. Um, That concludes my introductory comments. At this point, I would like to introduce Steve McMurtry, who is with De Novo Planning. He will be making the presentation for us this evening. Steve, take it away.
Could I pause real quick? Did anyone take up the translation? Just because I think there's a lot of technical terms. We're just speaking a little fast. Okay, thank you.
Good evening, City Council members. My name is Steve McMurtry. I'm a principal planner with De Novo Planning Group. We're a land use planning, urban design, and environmental consulting firm. I work out of the office up in the Sacramento area. We have offices in Southern California also. So we're under contract to the city to prepare environmental analysis for the Riverwalk specific plan process. So I have a presentation here. It's a lot of material. Obviously, people have commented on that. There's a specific plan and there's a draft EIR. So I'm going to try to cover both, and I'll try to be as prompt as I can, but there is a lot of material to cover. So there's several items where I'll probably want to go a little bit deeper and spend a little bit more time, and some that I'll go a little bit faster through. Let's see, is this going to work? You can, I'll just call out slide. Okay, so just starting with the purpose of the presentation, again, it's going to be a high-level overview of the specific plan and then a summary of the environmental impact report. And then what I'll do is I'll conclude with what our next steps are after the conclusion of the public review period. Just wanted to emphasize too what Miguel said is that the intent for the meeting is not that it's a hearing, it's an informational item for both the benefit of the city council and also the public to understand a little bit more about the specific plan project and then also the draft environmental analysis. And so that informative item, I think, is intended to supplement the reading of the document by people that are interested in and wanting to comment on the document. Next slide, please. So I'll start with just generally describing what the location is. I think most people know we've got two images here. One shows the location relative to some of the other communities within the region. The other is more of a zoomed in image of the site with an aerial photo. So that you can generally describe the site as north of Patterson Road, which is State Route 108, east of McHenry, and it's approximately 2 miles from downtown Riverbank. The site is within the city's general plan planning area, but it is outside the city limits and outside the sphere of influence. Next slide, please. So zooming in a little bit more on the boundaries, I think it's important to talk a little bit about the boundaries because there's a lot of boundaries described within the draft EIR. So the overall boundary here, what's shown in red, is the project area. And so this includes several boundaries internal to the site. So the first is going to be the specific plan itself. So that's the Riverwalk specific plan. And that's going to be demarcated with the crosshatch, the white sort of crosshatch mark. That is the specific plan area. Within the specific plan, there is a black boundary that's identified within the specific plan. It's sort of to the north, most part of the specific plan, and that's referred to as the Berg Hill property within the draft EIR. And so what the Berg Hill property is that is property that is controlled by the applicant. There is also property south of Berg Hill that is controlled by property owners that are not applicants. So in the planning business, you typically refer to them as non-participating property owners or non-applicant property owners, but they receive all the benefits that come along with a specific plan or any entitlements because they're part of that specific plan. And then also not marked on this map is an active adult component of the specific plan. So the entire specific plan is not active adult or 55 plus, but a portion of it is. And I'll go into a little bit more detail on that area here on some later slides. Next slide, please. So here is the existing general plan. I won't spend too much time on here, but I just wanted to show that generally the eastern half of the site has, as I mentioned, the entire site is within the city's existing general plan planning area. The eastern half of the site has land uses such as low density residential, medium density, high density. There's mixed use. There's a variety of parks and open space areas. So the city, dating back to when the general plan was originally prepared, had intentions to develop these for these specific uses. As you move outside of those areas, you see a reserve area, and that's part of the Berg Hill property. A reserve area is the place the city designated in the past that it's a place maybe for development, but the property owner would need to come forward. There'd be more intensive long-range planning that needs to be done, something like a specific plan. So that area was marked in the general plan for this long-range type of planning. And then everything outside of that is designated as more of an agricultural resource conservation use within the general plan, but it is within the general plan. And so what we tried to do was look at the city's existing general plan, understand the land uses, not necessarily, we didn't see that those land uses were configured to fit the topography and the shapes of some of the land uses, or some of the actual physical boundaries of topographic changes. So we wanted to look at the land uses as concepts of what the city wants there, and then try to develop some goals and objectives ultimately that guide for a more of a comprehensive land use plan for the area. Next slide, please. So the specific plan is broken down into 9 chapters. I won't go through each of these. It's going to range from an introduction, existing conditions. It's going to tell you about the biological conditions and agricultural resources and a variety of conditions that exist out there. Then chapter 3 becomes very important, both for the specific plan and for the EIR. This is where we talk about what the Riverwalk vision is. This is sort of what guided the entire design of the project and development of the specific plan. And then even later, development of alternatives that we analyze within the draft EIR. So this lays sort of the foundation for the urban designers and the engineers to start putting the pencil to the paper to draw and shape the land uses and circulation patterns. Chapter 4 is the land use and development standards. Oh, if you can go back. Land use and development standards. This is going to be your land use map. And then we're going to get a little bit more specific in terms of what you can actually do within those land uses. So development densities, setbacks, a variety of components that set a standard for what the city wants to actually see and does not want to see within certain types of land uses. The circulation chapter is in chapter 5. This is going to cover a variety of circulation components, from the vehicles to bike and pedestrian transit. Unique to this project, there is a neighborhood electric vehicle component, which is more commonly seen within active adult communities. It's basically seeing golf courts use within the community to travel from a place of residence to a gathering place within the community. So that's unique to this project, and that's covered under chapter 5. Chapter 6 is going to cover all of the infrastructure. So there's a range of master infrastructure, water, sewer, storm drainage that are covered within this chapter. We talk about public services, police, fire, etc. And then a lot about parks. Parks are a large component of this project. We tried to develop parks within each of the neighborhoods, and then central parks, and then parks sort of around the boundary of the site, in addition to more passive recreational, preserving riparian vegetation and open space. That's all addressed within chapter 6. Chapter 7 is the design guidelines. And this is where there's some architectural elevations, concepts that are really presented to show, typically when a development moves past the entitlement phase and actually starts to get developed, architects are hired to draw up plans, and the guidelines are going to provide those architects and engineers with some concepts of what the city would like to see, what the city finds acceptable or unacceptable. So it provides a little bit of a roadmap. Obviously, the architect's going to have some creativity of their own, but this provides some guidelines for them. Chapter 8 is a unique chapter because this project has an active adult community. It has a discussion about what that means. And so I'll talk a little bit more about that and how we design the active adult component of this project, but it comes from concepts from the American Planning Association with concepts of aging in place. And that's sort of the theme that that planners want to have as they start to look at an active adult community and how you shape that. And then the last chapter is going to be the implementation and administration. That's how the city implements it if it were to be adopted. Next slide, please. So project objectives. I won't go through each one of these, but these are extremely important, not just to guide the planners, the urban designers, the engineers that sort of did the artistry of coming up with the plan, but it also is extremely important as we go into the CEQA phase. They are a fundamental requirement to be able to develop alternatives that we would analyze and compare relative to what's being proposed. So it's a legal requirement to have a solid set of project objectives. So it serves two purposes there. Next slide. So here is just a slide that's going to showcase a couple of amenities that are built into the project. Up in the right, left-hand corner is a clubhouse, and this is really tied to the community core area. I'll talk a little bit about that. And so the community core is an area where it's going to be designed with a gathering place, different services, retail, a variety of things. And it's going to be a little bit more of an intense type of use. As you go concentrically out from that community core, you're going to get a little bit less dense. And then as you go farther and farther, you're going to get less dense in terms of the types of uses and the intensity of the use. And so within that community core, there is the concept of having a clubhouse, and the clubhouse is going to be a central gathering place. It could have a variety of things from conference facilities to, it could have a small deli, coffee shop, lounging areas. There's an indoor proposed to be around 20,000 square feet. Outdoor, it would there's pretty extensive land that could be used for everything from recreational type of uses. From, I know pickleball has gotten popular, bocce ball, tennis. There's a variety of outdoor recreational uses that can be built into the ultimate design. And then attached to that facility is a community park, so a much larger venue that's more of grass, open space, typical community park. And all of that will attach to a river walk park that extends more expansive around the entirety of the entire project. And I'll show those and illustrate exactly how that works on some of the diagrams here on some of the following slides. And so also neighborhood electric vehicle, I'll talk a little bit about that. The Riverwalk Park, or the Riverwalk Trail, which loops around the entire project. And then I think you'll see in the land use plan, there is a lot of open space, and they're used for both buffer type land uses, protection of certain types of important habitats, but also open space, active recreation. Next slide. So here's a village summary. And this is emphasizing more the residential component of the project on this slide. What you can see, what I'd like to describe is the way that the urban designers came up with this concept was really following the idea to create a very vibrant and successful active adult community. There's been lots of active adult communities. Some end up just being suburbs. The more successful ones have lots of amenities and they have some structure to it. And so what we tried to do was create, there's an access point that comes off of Patterson Road. Coffee Road is an extension to the north that brings traffic up into the neighborhood. If you can see the high density residential, I believe it's called Village I, right in that area is where you're going to have, let me see if I can. So right in this area right here is your community core. So right here, you have the brown is going to be your high density residential. And then you have your clubhouse right here on the corner. And then you have clubhouse facilities, like I mentioned, the bocce ball, the pickleball, any type of recreational that might go into that. And then the frontage, you have an opportunity for, it's mixed use, but it would be an opportunity for retail, various types of services. There might be a coffee shop, deli, a variety of types of uses on the first story. And then second story, There's some flexibility in the design in the specific plan that allows for anything from offices. It could be, medical office, could be a law firm. It could be a variety of types of professional services, but it also would allow for senior apartments if that was what the market really wanted there. And the idea is to try to create a more intense environment where people are going to go to, they're going to travel from other parts within the specific plan area. And so that's your congregating area. As you move outwards, it gets a little bit less dense. So what you have here is you have a medium density residential. A medium density residential is going to be, I believe it's 8 to 16 units to the acre. A variety of products that range from alley loaded to, it could be duplex, it could be, zero lot line. There's a variety of product types that can be built, but they're going to be smaller lots, smaller homes. And then as you go outward from there, farther away, both to the south and to the north, you get a low density residential, single family detached. And the idea in the American Planning Association, when you're doing aging in place, active adult type planning, is to try to create communities where, so it's 55 plus. And as somebody comes in at 55, the concept is they might be, the kids have left the house. They don't need the house that they have. It's too big. Property is too much to manage. So you want to move to a place, a smaller house, and a place that has more activities than maybe your neighborhood has. And so creating a neighborhood kind of core community center here, and then having an opportunity for those people that want to move in here, but they still want the life of a single family detached house that maybe they were used to. They move in here. And as you start to age, the American Planning Association says that, in theory, people are going to want to downsize. They're going to want to get even smaller. And so having another product type that accommodates those people in the medium density and putting that even closer to the downtown core area is what the urban designers wanted to do, following that theme of aging in place. And then as somebody ages even more into life, you get to the point where you might need some assisted living, you might need some help, memory care facilities, things like that. And so the idea is this high density residential provides an opportunity for that. And it's moving it even closer to the core of this community center, closer to the clubhouse. And so you're creating, as somebody's mobility might be decreasing, you're moving them, or at least giving them the opportunity to move closer and closer towards that community core area. And so these are planning themes that the urban designers took and tried to carry out through that active adult design for this project. Not all of the project is active adult. If you come down in here, you can see there's some larger lots here. Basically everything, there is a bluff right here where this is a lower elevation, and up here is a little bit higher elevation. Up in here, it's not active adult. It's going to be larger single family lots, more traditional single family low density. There are a variety of other types of uses. I'll cover those on another slide, but there's some mixed uses down here that do also provide opportunities for housing. But the emphasis is that more than likely, because of the higher volume of traffic along Patterson and McHenry, it's probably more successful to build more of a retail type of a use in that location, but the markets can demand what they demand. Next slide, please. So here's a circulation, just kind of overview. The next slide is going to go a little bit more into detail in the roads that in the circulation components. So the existing transportation network is fairly non-existent out here. It's a lot of farm roads. Hogue Road is an actual road, but there's a lot of farm roads. So there's not a lot of circulation through this area other than private roads to access the property owners' properties. The main existing circulation is Patterson on the south side and McHenry along the western side of the property. Again, we'll go over the neighborhood electric vehicles and bike and pedestrian and transit components. Next slide, please. So this slide covers some of the roadways. There are arterials, collectors, and local roads. For the most part, local roads are going to be all of your neighborhood roads, internal to the neighborhood villages. The main arterial road that's going to come in let's see if I can, is right here off of Coffee Road, and it's the artery that goes through the entire site. And so it's 110 feet, which is a standard arterial, but there's a couple of places where it's modified for a couple of reasons. Right here, there's a down slope. So it comes in, it's on the higher elevation, and it slopes down here. And in that down slope, it's modified to an 82 foot. It's important to reconfigure some things in terms of pedestrian, to locate pedestrian movements on just one side of the road, bicycle travel on just one side of the road because of the slope. So just being careful so that people aren't walking more towards the steeper side. People are shifted over towards the cut bank. So that's a modification there. As you get down to the bottom, it picks up as 110 feet again. And then as you come into the community core, what we wanted to do was pinch that down to slow traffic down a little bit. It's important to slow traffic down as you get into this more community gathering places. And so the roadway is going to reduce down. The total roadway is 92 feet, and that includes sidewalks, medians, and things like that. And there's more section views within the circulation chapter of the specific plan that shows some of those details. But after the community core, it picks up and it's another 110 foot to the standard arterial roadway. There's a variety of collector roads that are throughout that are designed. They've been analyzed by a traffic engineer to make sure that the traffic flows throughout the site. Next slide, please. So I'll talk real quick on the neighborhood electric vehicle plan. It's unique. A lot of people that move into active adult, they find that it's very important. So it creates a market, and then it's very favorably viewed by California Air Resources Board and other types of organizations that really want to get power-driven or fuel-driven motor vehicles off of the road or reduced and more converted towards an electric vehicle. So this provides an opportunity for people to take short trips from their place of residence within the specific plan area, perhaps a drive around the river walk at low speeds, drive down to the community clubhouse, to the community park, on roadways within the specific plan area. So a neighborhood electric vehicle is considered a low-speed electric vehicle by the state. It's anything that's going to be 35 miles. It's a max of 35 miles an hour. Generally, they're even slower than that. And so there are lanes and there are routes. And so there's 3 different classes of NEV lanes that are defined within the specific plan. I won't go into each one of them, but they have different restrictions in terms of where they're allowed to be shared roads, shared within a roadway with a motorized vehicle. Sometimes they're restricted, they're separated. Sometimes they're shared with pedestrians and bicyclists, but there's different classes for each of those. And so there's a designation and it's intended to meet some of the state requirements for NEVs. Next slide, please. So the bike ped, the most prominent feature in terms of a trail system, that it's really a multi-use trail system. It's the River Walk Trail, and it loops around the entirety of the active adult component of the project. And so up here, it's going to be on the land side of the levee. And there is several access points. It's hard to see on the slide, but there's some green sort of open space paseos that allow people to come through from the roadway to access it. You can see several places there. And then as you go up north, there's some additional places. So people can access this to be able to walk on it. But it was set up, the River Walk Trail was set up to loop around the entire project. And so if you live over here, for instance, you can access the River Walk Trail, whether it's on your bike or you go for a jog or a walk, or you take your NEV, you can go on a fairly lengthy trip around the entire project, or, an out and back. But it's set up as a recreational amenity. It gets people out and active. And it's unique to this project, and it was fitting with the topography and the site characteristics. Next slide. So I'll go fairly quickly over. There's 3 slides here that cover some master infrastructure planning. There's water, there's sewer, and there's storm drainage. And so these have been designed by a professional engineer, a licensed engineer that considered the demands of water, the generation of sewer, and then the hydrology characteristics to be able to retain and detain storm drainage. So it's designed with 12-inch mains. There's 8-inch mains within the neighborhoods. There's a 2 million gallon water tank, 3 wells, pressure regulating station. And then one of the comments that came up in the NOP process was from adjacent property owners were, I'm an agricultural farmer, I'm in the specific plan, or I'm in the SOI area. I want to continue farming. Am I going to be impacted? Am I going to lose my water? And the answer is no. This project is not going to impact existing irrigation water flows to any of the existing properties there. So if somebody is a non-applicant property owner and they don't want to develop right now or ever, they can continue to farm their land. They're still going to have access to their water. This project is not going to restrict that. It's not going to prohibit that. It's not going to cut off any irrigation to those people. Next slide. So the sewer plant, again, it was designed, there are 3 pump stations. The mains range from 8-inch to 12-inch. Everything will be ultimately pumped to the northeast pump station. And then there is an offsite sewer line that has 2 force mains, a 10-inch and a 16-inch, that would be bored underneath the Stanislaus River to the north side of the river, and then a 1.4 mile pipe, a force main pipe that would go to the existing wastewater treatment plant, which serves Riverbank. It's located north of Stanislaus River. Next slide, please. The drainage plan, there are 4 basins. Each basin is designed for that particular watershed. And each one was designed with the capacity needs to be able to capture and retain all of the storm drainage needs of each of those watersheds. Next slide, please. So the entitlements that are requested include a sphere of influence amendment, a municipal services review update, general plan amendment, pre-zoning, annexation, specific plan, the NEV plan, vesting tentative maps, development agreement. And then if the city council were to ultimately approve the specific plan, there's lots of subsequent approvals that would be needed. Everything from final maps, improvement plans, grading plans. The list really goes on to be able to actually implement the project. A lot of work would have to be done still. Next slide. So the general plan amendment, I won't spend too much time on this. I know that we covered a lot of the land uses already on one of the other slides, but it does include a list of 3 different residential uses, mixed use, and each mixed use is going to have some different characteristics that would be expected in that area. The community core area, obviously, there's a clubhouse site and it's specific to a clubhouse. And there, if you look closely, you can see on the north side, there is a pretty expansive, I think we call it an open space buffer. That area is all the land that's basically from the Stanislaus River edge to just on the west side of the levee. And so there's an extensive amount of riparian vegetation that the design is to preserve all of that. So all of that would be left intact. There would be no destruction of that. There's no building trails or anything like that in that. The trail system, the river walk, would just be on the land side of the levee. So it's right there, it's close, but it wouldn't cause any disturbance to that riparian vegetation. That was one of the early goals that we wanted to do. I think it was goal 7, objective 7, we wanted to preserve vegetation, habitat, and specifically the Stanislaus River. Next slide. So the pre-zoning map, the pre-zoning would be specific plan. It's pre-zoning because the city council, if the city council were to approve the specific plan, it would ultimately have to go to LAFCO before the zoning could actually become effective. And then if it were approved by both City Council and LAFCO, it would be a specific plan zoning. Specific plan zoning is going to defer to details in the development standards, the land use chapter of the specific plan in terms of how you want to develop it. So it's very specific to this site. Next slide, please. So land use summary, again, I won't spend a whole lot of time on this slide too. You've seen a lot of the land uses, but in the table just to the right, you can see some of the number of units that would be associated with each of the land uses. And there's a density column there. 0 to 8 units is what would be expected within the low density residential. 8 to 16 for high, medium density, and 16 plus for the high density. There's 3 categories of mixed use. We have mixed use that's within the community core, and that's really designed, it's really specific to that community core, what we would like to see there to serve that active adult community. And then there's mixed use that's outside the community core along Patterson and McHenry, which is more specific towards the opportunity that they have with a lot of volume of people traveling by, and the opportunity for the retail component to be a little bit more successful, but flexibility in the event that those property owners want to build a higher density residential or maybe a mixed retail and high density residential. So there's some flexibility for those mixed uses. Next slide, please. So this is the sort of the second part of the project. The first part, I know this is a long presentation, but I wanted to dive into the specific plan and try to inform you as much as I can in as short a period as I can. The second part is going to be covering the draft EIR. And so for the benefit of people that aren't as familiar with an EIR, I wanted to start with just what is an EIR. And at its core, an EIR is an informational document. It's intended to inform decision makers like yourselves, planning commissioners, adjacent agencies, state agencies, citizens, interested communities. So it's intended to provide as many facts as you can in a document. We try to take a lot of technical information and make it as understandable as possible, but sometimes it's technical information. And we're obviously available to answer any questions through the process. But ultimately, the EIR is an informational document. It serves as a public forum. So it starts with an NOP process where we have scoping. People can come and they can provide their concerns, they can ask questions, and ultimately we try to narrow the scope of the document. What are we going to analyze based on concerns and feedback that we get back from citizens, in addition to our understanding, our technical expertise of topics that we think might be relevant and need to be addressed. And so it starts there. This is another opportunity for it to be a public forum. And then obviously there are hearings. So the CEQA process is truly a public forum. One of the core parts of an environmental impact report is as we analyze a project and we start to identify when there are potential environmental impacts, we do the best that we can to try to identify ways to reduce those impacts to the extent possible. And you do that through the formulation of mitigation measures. Mitigation measure is going to try to either avoid the impact if possible. It's going to minimize an impact if there is an impact. And sometimes there's compensatory type of mitigation. And I'll talk a little bit about the mitigation for this project, but it's a core component for the project. Sometimes, even with mitigation, you can't reduce an impact to an insignificant level, which for almost every EIR, you do an EIR because you know that there are going to be certain impacts that are significant, unavoidable. And so lastly, an EIR, a lot of people think it's prepared to try to get a project approved. It isn't. It is not an advocate for or against the project. It's not trying to get it approved. It's not trying to get it denied. It's truly just like the first bullet, an informational item to provide the facts that are needed for decision makers to make the decisions, as well as the public and interested parties to provide comments and concerns to you. Next slide. So the NOP process for this project, NOP was circulated in June of 2021. It went out to a variety of agencies, citizens, et cetera. There was a scoping meeting that was held that month through that 30-day public review period. There was a variety of concerns that were expressed within comment letters. And we did take all of those, we read them, and we took the concerns and incorporated those into the analysis. What we discussed, what we analyzed, were all part of that. So next slide. So this provides a summary of some of those concerns that were expressed within the comment letters. So they ranged from concerns with the loss of productive farmland, agricultural soils, development within floodplains, traffic and noise considerations, the loss of protection and preservation of tribal cultural resources. So I have a list here of the various types of environmental concerns that were expressed within the NOP process. And the comment letters are provided within the draft EIR. There's a summary of these types of topics within the introductory chapter to sort of introduce the analysis that is performed later within the draft EIR. Next slide, please. And here is a list of the topics. Based on that scoping process, the concerns that we heard, we developed a scope for the environmental impact report. And coincidentally, the scope of the EIR is basically, it is a full scope EIR. So there are times when you can narrow the scope down to lesser topics than are covered within the state law. For this particular project, we cover every topic that's defined within the California Environmental Quality Act. So it's considered a full scope EIR. Next slide, please. And again, going back to the project objectives that I talked about, how important those were to guide not only the sort of crafting and the shaping of the specific plan itself, but also to formulate the alternatives. Those objectives formulated helped us inform the formulation of these 4 alternatives. So we analyzed a no project alternative, which is essentially the project doesn't get approved, it doesn't get built. We analyzed an increased density alternative, which the concept is you take some of the lower density residential and you intensify density, you increase density. So you have more medium density, more high density, and less low density residential. So you end up with more residential units on the same amount of land. The lower density residential, which is essentially the inverse of what I just described, this is where you take some of the high density, some of the medium density, and you make it more low density. And so you end up with fewer lots on this land. And then there's a no reserve alternative. And what this is, because the project includes both the specific plan and a sphere of influence expansion that goes beyond the sphere of influence, but none of that land is proposed for development. It just receives a reserve designation. The no reserve alternative would be not including that within the approval of a project. So the boundary would be changed to only be inclusive of the specific plan. And so that area would remain outside the sphere of influence. It still is within the general plan planning area, but it wouldn't receive any reserve designation. It would just remain in the current designation. Next slide. So as I mentioned, one of the core components of a draft EIR is to develop mitigation measures where you identify environmental impacts. So there are 43 mitigation measures that are identified within the draft EIR. They cover a variety of topics. We've listed them here. They range from agricultural to air quality, utilities, transportation, et cetera. A lot of them are designed to try to address some of the concerns that were raised during the NOP process. Some of them are ideas that we got from some of those comment letters. Next slide, please. And as I mentioned, every EIR, or I shouldn't say every EIR, but most EIRs I've ever worked on end up with at least one significant and unavoidable impact. It's just the nature of change. So certain topics like agricultural resources, you have agricultural land. If you build the city on that agricultural land, it's changed. It's never going to be back. It's part of the city now. And so in situations like that, you can try to do what you can, but ultimately what you're left with is a significant unavoidable impact. So it is not unavoidable. There's nothing that you can do other than not do the project. So certain topics here. So I've broken it down into project impacts and also cumulative impacts. For the most part, you'll see they're very much the same. There's a couple of impacts that fall under significant unavoidable under cumulative, but not under project impact, but it doesn't work in the vice versa way. So these are the significant unavoidable impacts. Ultimately, when a project goes to the city council for consideration, the EIR is put before you for certification. There are findings that have to be adopted. There are findings of statement of overriding considerations. So you consider different economic, technical, legal, other types of considerations to override significant impacts that are found within the draft EIR. And so this is the list. They're obviously much more detailed within the draft EIR itself, but this is a overview list of those impacts. Next slide, please. So this is where we're at right now. We are in the 45-day public review period. The public review period ends March 8th. As I understand it, it's going to extend for the translation versions of the document, and that's to be determined still. But the document that's gone out, the notice of availability that went out, identified a March 18th deadline to provide comments. What we would like to do is receive any written comments either by email or mail. And I have another slide where I'll identify exactly where you can provide those to. But it's important for us to receive those comments. What we'll do is we'll provide a full written response. We analyze those, have the technical experts analyze them. And in some cases, we'll make revisions to the draft EIR text in an errata form to make sure that we address those comments. Next slide, please. So next steps. So the 45-day public review period, once it concludes, we will prepare the final EIR. There may be a need to prepare some revisions, text revisions to the specific plan, but ultimately the hope would be to prepare the final EIR and a final specific plan that would become available to the Planning Commission and to the City Council hearing. The hearing would be to ultimately certify the EIR that it's adequate and complete, and then to consider the entitlement requests that have been provided via applications, a specific plan, and the long list of entitlements that I provided earlier. If the City Council were to approve the project, the annexation and the sphere of influence is something that has to be approved by LAFCO, so it doesn't go into effect until LAFCO hears that. And so part of that LAFCO process would be an MSR or Municipal Service Review update. Then there would be a hearing on the sphere of influence expansion and also on the annexation. Next slide, please. And I'll leave you with this last slide for any comments, any written comments that you have. If you can provide them to Miguel Galvez, his email is at riverwalk@riverbank.org. His mailing address is listed there at the bottom, and there is information if you want to download the EIR, the specific plan. There is a link there on where you can access that information. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm going to open it up for public comment here now, but before I open it up, I want everyone to be aware that public comment tonight is going to be just reviewed, but it's not a formal input. Your formal input would be through the riverbank.org, Riverwalk address, the email address, or through the written. It all has to be in writing. And if I could have, if there are repetitive comments, I know it's going to be, some will be repetitive. Let's keep the repetitive comments, after it's been stated. Okay, I agree, but I also need X, Y, Z answered. So do I have any public comments?
Good evening. My name is Dan Whetstone. I live at 7824 McHenry Avenue. This is a great project. Doesn't belong on the river basin down there. It belongs somewhere else. You know, I can see us building out by Morris Nursery slowly and getting out to that area, building around the basin. The basin should be the last thing that's developed. Maybe never. It's such good farmland. So please consider that. I think most of you guys have been out there and looked at that area. So don't let that be your legacy, approving this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, staff, and community. I'm Lori Carley, and I am the president of the League of Women Voters of Stanislaus County, living at 1313 Broughton Place, Modesto, California. As you move forward in this process, we would like to state that the League of Women Voters of Stanislaus County has a history of study and advocacy regarding land use decisions, including comments on the 2006 Riverbank General Plan Update. We recognize that farmland is an irreplaceable resource, and prime farmland in particular needs to be preserved and protected. Riverbank's current sphere of influence contains land which can be developed for housing, avoiding unnecessary conversion of prime farmland in the proposed Riverwalk development area. The League of Women Voters advocates for urban development that is contiguous with existing development. Contiguous development provides more economical provision of urban services, allowing for adequate funding for infrastructure such as water, sewers, parks, schools, and transportation. The League of Women Voters also supports water policies and practices that protect and ensure coordinated, sustainable use of groundwater and surface water supplies for urban, agricultural, and environmental purposes. We are concerned that the urbanized land use proposed for Riverwalk will affect the ability of the land to serve the purpose of aquifer recharge that can only occur when the land is in agricultural use. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
I'm Judy Ferrari, resident of Stanislaus County. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. The proposed annexation, which will accommodate the Riverwalk project, sprawls west, encompassing the 1,300-acre designated agricultural conservation areas. Riverbank's 2016 expansion required the use of agricultural buffers and overall policies related to infill prior to consideration of additional annexation areas like this project is. And with the expectation that the expansion of 2016 would accommodate the city's growth over the next 20 years. This request, in my opinion, shows a complete disregard for the city of Riverbank to protect farmland and the county's ag economy, one of the top 10 ag producing counties in the nation. The proposed annexation will require the expansion of the city's sphere of influence by 1,535 acres, annexing approximately 1,000 acres, all of which is on the farmland identified as part of the city's sustainable agricultural strategy. One of LAFCO's main charges, as put forth by the state legislature, is to protect and promote agriculture. LAFCO policies state that development should be guided away from agricultural lands. It appears the majority of the 1,535-acre sphere of influence expansion area is considered prime farmland. If each of the cities in Stanislaus County ignores its responsibilities to protect farmland and promote compact, sustainable urban growth, this county will incrementally follow the path of Los Angeles County, which until 1960 was the nation's #1 ag producing county. It took less than one lifetime for the cities in Los Angeles County to sprawl together, paving over some of the world's most productive farmland. The city of Riverbank should not be given a pass to violate every rule and expectation as set forth by our county. Simply stated, no farmland, no food production. Simply stated, without ag buffers separating our cities, we will have all the inherent problems created by sprawl. And without orderly growth and cost-effective infill development, our workers won't have the affordable housing desperately needed in our community. Stanislaus County will become another commuter community with no farmland, no affordable housing, and the many costs of sprawling development. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Ramon R. Bermudez, 6261 Roselle Avenue. I use service there for 30 years now. I have the ones in Spanish, so if you don't mind. No. It's gonna take me a little bit to translate, okay? It has to do with the amount of traffic on the local highways and the regional highways also. And the access to the site. It has to do with the amount of noise while it's operating. It has to do with the elimination in vegetation and the habitat, the species of the site. I have a question on this one. It got me confused since I read it the first time because it says elimination. You mean you are going to eliminate the grass, the greenery, the animals that live in there? Rabbits, foxes, whatever they might find? They're going to eliminate it. That's what it means. And that's cruel. The fountain water for the project is possible effects related to the recharge of water. High elevations of emissions of gases. The effect in winter, they call it. Potential impacts that conduct to growing. You want to grow more? I think you should wait a few years before you grow on this. Because on the matter of 10 years, yeah, 24, no, 14 years now. So 14 years are all the people in charge, which are very kind, of course, but on some things we have things to disagree. Things to disagree. Possible impacts related to the health that comes out of the emissions, the contaminants criteria, what they call it. In this part, I know is this is the potential dangers associated with the products, chemicals, with chemical products, and the residuals of agriculture. That's just for a few. In the matter of things that it's good that we can do something for the community and in the community, but there are some things that you shouldn't do, and to destroy vegetation and to destroy the animals from the area in order to get a project. Don't do that project. You don't kill nobody. You don't take vegetation down for nothing. It does nothing. We don't need that. We have the Jacob Meyer's Park, and that's a good walk we can take there.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, yeah, thank you.
My name's Jamie Agers. I believe I gave my information earlier. My husband and I are two of the property owners that would be directly impacted if this project is approved. I'll keep my comments brief. The proposed project does not help Riverbank's need for affordable housing or to meet its quota for affordable housing, even though the EIR lists as one of its primary goals as addressing, quote, California's affordability crisis, unquote. The project also doesn't mirror Riverbank's complexion, which is an average of 3.33 persons per dwelling unit, as per the very recent 2022 California Department of Finance information. I also read another online source about statistics that said, quote, family establishments represent nearly 81% of the Riverbank households. This project would attract and import people from out of the area rather than serving Riverbank. And finally, I'd like to point out table 3.10 of the EIR, which is very concerning. It describes the current area that's designated as agriculture being 521 acres. If this plan is approved, there would be 0 acres designated ag, and that's very concerning. Please consider the option of no project when this project comes before you. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Gary Pearson. I live at 2209 Cedarwood Circle in District 3. I'm a long-term resident of this region. I grew up in a community just south of here, and I've been a lifelong farmer and agriculturalist, both at UC Davis for many, many years. I moved back to this area about 2.5 years ago to be closer to family, and my family represents the 4th generation of farmers. I am here to say that this project it takes out prime agricultural land. As a long-term agriculturalist, I look at soils, and that particular area does have soils that are conducive to agriculture. You may not realize the economic impact of Stanislaus County, but Stanislaus County has about $7.4 billion of ag revenue. Plus, there's a multiplier effect of about $2.4 billion. That project takes out revenue that can go to Stanislaus County. This project would also increase the traffic, the noise, air quality, and affect our quality of life here in Riverbank. And I do take note, I ride my bicycle through this community often. I only do it during certain times of the day because of the traffic. And I've ridden around this whole community many, many times in the last 2 years. Also think of water. Water is a prime resource. We can drill wells, we can fill our reservoirs. Those are important sources of water. But that in particular increases the amount of water being used. So I wouldn't support it for that. We've also had in our presentation about sewers. Are we going to run a sewer underneath the river and to your current wastewater system? That would be very challenging. And I do get down to the river and I do see lots of different animals because we farm on the other side. There's also the biological effects. And there is substantial wildlife that goes in and around the Stanislaus River. And also there are some particular plants. Elderberry is one. It talks about it in the ERI, and there's a specific insect that's only found in this part of the valley. So we have to take that into consideration. And finally, my observation having walked the site is, why would you put a housing development in a floodplain? That doesn't make sense to me. Historically, we have a 100-year flood, 200-year flood, and even a 500-year flood. That particular site is conducive to flooding. Now, we mitigate that by controlling the river flows, and you can look that up on a website. But in my final thing is,
you got to look at that closely. How are you going to mitigate something if it floods? You can't put a reclamation wall on that property. So with that, thank you very much.
Thank you. Just for everyone's information, if you're speaking and the timer goes off, I'm allowing you to finish your comment. I'm not going to just cut you off unless, you know, you say something offensive to me. Kidding, even then.
Thank you. My name is Fred Walton. I live on Hogue Road, and I know the river bottom well there. I've ridden horses, ridden my bikes, I hiked. I think the gentleman before me said that he went down there and hiked around there. Have you as a council gone down there, walked it, grabbed the dirt in your hand, put your foot in the river? You know that there's a lot of different geographies down there. There's river, there's river bottom, there's bluff, goes all the way out to Patterson. I think that if there's a high demand for subdivision development, it shouldn't be on the river bottom. It should be more around the top, continued from Park Ridge in a nice subdivision manner like Del Rio or Park Ridge. Certain places are good for certain developments. That out there is good for that. But anyways, if I'd like to see you guys go out there, drive around, look around, and see what you think that land would be best for. As you know, you can put real estate in many areas, but there's only so much prime land. You can't change that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council members. My name is Karen Mitchell, and I live in Riverbank. I have a few issues about this project. I support all those who spoke in favor of the prime farmland. One of the things we have to be aware, I think in this era of climate change, obvious climate change, we have to be forward-looking, not looking at the next 10 or 20 years, but further down the road. And not just, this is prime farmland, and our arable land may be disappearing because of climate change. We're going to need the arable land, all the arable land that we have probably going forward, as much as we can retain. The second issue is the protection of the river and riparian habitat. I love Stanislaus County's river parks, and I have walked many of them, and I've walked Jacob Myers many a time. And what I've noticed is that our county, though, does not do a very good job of allowing for enough riparian habitat. And what I'm seeing even at Jacob Myers is erosion, a lot of erosion with higher rainfall. And I don't know if that is being adequately taken into consideration. River Cove has had a lot of issues. They've had to cordon off parts of their levee so people don't go down there because it's being damaged and eroded. I know River Cove has had to sandbag because of flooding. So we don't have a good track record in this county. And I've been to other communities too and noticed this. We do not allow for erosion. We do not allow enough width for riparian habitat. And lastly, the issue is for me, traffic. I cannot imagine the traffic that's going to, if we do the build out that's proposed, because there's only one expansion that's proposed in terms of road, and that's McHenry from Clarabelle to Patterson. Can you imagine though, Coffee, how impacted Coffee is going to be as just a 2-lane road? And are you going to put a light there? That's going to, you cannot make a left. It's really hard during commuting time to make a right or a left onto Patterson Road. And so the gentleman who gave this presentation he talked about the traffic within the development, but what are the traffic studies showing for outside the development that will be impacted by it? But anyway, thank you for your consideration tonight.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Barney Agers. I live on North McHenry Avenue, just south of the bridge. First suggestion, we need to rename McHenry Avenue, McHenry Raceway. Today, when I went to pull out, southbound vehicle was doing over 100 miles an hour. That's in a 55 zone. The real reason that I want to speak, my wife and I have walked most of the Riverbank neighborhoods over the last 5 to 6 months with a petition to establish urban limits. The voters that we spoke to were many. I would say 90% of the folks I spoke to regarding not Riverwalk, but preserving the farmland, they signed. You need to know that the people that vote for you don't want to see more farmland eaten up with homes. The prime land needs to be left alone. The hard pan and shallow earth is where you should be building homes. And you need to know, again, your voters are aware of what is going on right around them, and they're tired of it. So think about that. They may vote you out. And by the way, our petition failed because of some unscrupulous collector that tanked our petition. I'm not going to give up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Agers. Next, please.
Good evening. My name's Cliff Nagel. I live at 6613 Candlewood Circle. Lived there for 43 years. Don't let my hair fool you. I really am old. First of all, let me repeat I thought of it just as it was mentioned. I don't know how it would be mitigated. But if Coffee Road is going to be the main road into that, and it crosses Patterson Road, you've got a problem. You already have a problem on Patterson Road. And I don't know what you're going to do. You'll have if you put a light there, you'll have traffic backed up at McHenry and all the way back up to Escalon and maybe to Stockton. I think the city council faces a conundrum. You're dealing with people who own land. Maybe they've been there for generations. And maybe they're old and tired. And they don't have someone to take it over. And somebody comes along and says to them, we'll offer you a decent price. Now, if that person lived 10 miles over here, no one would give it in. Take the money and run. This isn't a situation where the people making the decision really have a dog in the fight. So what happened to the idea of a man's home as his castle? Okay, boy, we all believe in that, as long as it's our own home. The problem is, what about the rest of it? The environment. And the last meeting I was at the city council, I chided one of the council members for using the term funds from the federal government was free money. It ain't so. There's no such thing. It's either coming out of your pocket or my pocket. Doesn't matter, but it's not free money. But the idea of this development
doesn't matter, or any other project. And as I said the last time I spoke to you, what is this going to do? What good is this going to do for the people of Riverbank who are here now? They're not going to be the ones that are going to be moving into that area. I guess some sort of a password or something for low-cost housing is high density. I don't know, but if you're really interested in housing, the majority of people buying their first home, they're not going to be buying $400,000, $500,000 homes. And so I don't know what they plan on. And just lastly, has anybody looked into the history of the developer? I've seen it time and time again. Beautiful pictures, drawings, plans, parks, parkways, etc. Get into construction, run to the city council and say, cost of materials has gone up. We can't afford to put only this many homes on an acre. We have to increase it or we can't go through with it. And the city council folds like a tent.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mayor, council members, Dave Romano on behalf of the landowners group. I just wanted to make a few brief comments. I've had the good fortune of working in Riverbank for the last 30 plus years. And I just want the council to know, your planning commission to know, and those here, that Riverbank has done a wonderful job, project after project after project, from North Landing to River Heights to Crossroads West, scrutinizing projects, making sure they're a benefit to the community. We're proud to bring this project before you. We understand this is an early step in the process. We look forward to everyone making their comments on the draft DIR, to responding to those comments. One of the challenges of being in the valley is that there's not a project that we can work on that's not ag land. Any city faces this problem, and so we need to balance that issues. Ag preservation is available. The California Farmland Trust has a program to help us preserve ag. The county's done a better job of preserving agriculture. Farmers have become more efficient with the water that they use. Our revenues continue to grow while our area grows, and cities have responsibility to provide housing. So all of these need to be balanced. We trust the council to balance those. And we just want to thank your staff for the work that they've done to this point. We look forward to continuing to work with them and to bringing this before the commission and council in the future for hearings. So we just wanted to say thank you for the effort so far, and we look forward to a full hearing when the project is ready. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Last comment.
Thank you for this opportunity tonight. I'm Kent Mitchell, a resident of River Heights, been there since 1992. And great presentation tonight, but I have to wonder, why there? Of all the places with the top quality prime farmland, when there's other places to develop that's not on prime farmland with water recharge areas. Can't help but saying that I think a lot of us know who the major landowner is in this area. Somebody that's well known, very with a lot of political connections, and to think that is not a factor in this, I think is not realistic. So the fact that it's a largely an age-restricted project, does that really meet the housing needs of Stanislaus County residents? What we're doing is attracting a lot of affluent retirees, largely from the Bay Area, and that's not really solving the housing needs for Stanislaus County residents. With the new development going in Crossroads West and Costco already, and this on top of it, I know it's been talked about before, but the traffic on Coffee Road's just going to be, it's going to be a nightmare. I was one of the people that walked the streets of Riverbank for the Urban Limit Initiative, and
as Barney said, only fraudulent activity kept that from passing. And when I went door to door, I'd say it was 10 to 1. In my neighborhood in River Heights, people were against this development. I urge the council to listen to your residents and vote no on this. Thank you.
Okay. All right, at this time, if the planning commission has any comments right now or not, because it's going to be a long process by the time you get it. Is there anything that you don't have to speak? All right, thank you very much. Same thing for the council. This is going to be a long process. Is there anything that needs to be said now, or do we wait?
I'm waiting.
Wait. All right. I want to thank everyone for their patience. It's been a long process for tonight, and I look forward to the continued discussion over the next 6 months to a year. We're going to move forward now to item 11.3, a resolution authorizing the city manager to negotiate and finalize a standard industrial commercial single-tenant lease agreement for the lease of 6436 Oakdale Road for future site of Riverbank City Hall. And I'm going to give people a few seconds to vacate or quiet down. All right, thank you. Marisol.
Good evening, mayors and sitting council members, as well as residents. Tonight, we are discussing the continuation of lease negotiations for 6436 Oakdale Road. This is the site of the current telecontact center and is a site that we have been evaluating for some time as the location for a future city hall. If I can go to the next slide, please. So for quite some time, the city council has had on their strategic plan process, evaluating spatial needs for City Hall to be able to house city staff. In June 2018, the city council established a strategic plan objective to be able to conduct a spatial analysis of all of the city's facilities. Staff has outgrown the current facilities, which makes it difficult to add staff that's necessary to serve all of our residents. In January 2019, the City Council approved a contract with Indigo, Hammond, and Plale Architects for a spatial needs analysis. That consultant worked with all of the city departments to conduct a short and long-term staffing needs assessment to determine what our spatial needs are. Next slide. So some of the
Sorry, excuse me, Marisol, I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm having a really hard time hearing with all the noise that's going on there. Can we ask them to clear the foyer out? I'm just really sorry. Thank you. I've even turned them up, but I. Sorry.
Wait a minute.
Thank you.
Some of the observations that were made during the spatial analysis, excuse me, is with regards to City Hall North, which is where administration, recreation, and our council chambers is that number one, the council chamber is too small, as evidenced today. For items that are of extreme importance to our residents, we don't have adequate space to be able to house them in our existing council chambers, which is one of the reasons why we're holding this particular meeting here tonight, because of the Riverwalk project presentation, to make sure that we allowed for a large number of residents to be able to attend. Second, the restrooms are inadequate, not easily accessible. And third, there's insufficient space to house the future needs of administration and the Parks and Recreation Department. If you happen to walk into administration at this point in time, you will note that every single desk and office is currently occupied. There is staffing needs that we have within the department that we would not be able to address because of a lack of space. With regards to City Hall South, for those residents that actually go into City Hall South, which is where Finance, Building and Planning and Development Services Administration is, you will notice immediately how overcrowded that building is. It's evidenced by all of the staff that's located near the counter. There is not one desk that is not currently occupied. So that building is severely overcrowded. There's not an appropriate separation of the counter and staff working spaces. And there's no public restrooms in that particular building. So it does provide some difficulty for our residents who come in and don't have access to a public restroom. They actually have to go across the street to our recreation department to be able to access those. Next slide. So when that spatial analysis was presented to the City Council in 2020, the observations that we continue to see as part of that was some of the analysis determined that the interim solution should be to move Parks and Recreation to yet another separate space, which would be yet another building that we would need to lease or purchase. That would be 3 buildings for just the administrative staff. This does not include Public Works, which is already located in a separate facility. So that would mean if residents needed to do any rentals with Parks and Recreation, they would go to that building. They would then have to walk all the way over to the Finance Department to make their payments, and then have to walk all the way back to that new building that they would occupy. They also discussed reorganizing some of these space to allow for an expanded council chambers and allow administration to expand. And it would also improve some of the access to the expanded restrooms. So if Parks and Recreation is no longer there, then obviously that would allow us to expand our council chambers into that now vacant space. And then we would try to move administration slightly into some of the area where the council chambers would be. That would still require some significant tenant improvements, which would require staff to not be able to occupy the space during the time that those improvements are being made. So we would have to relocate them yet to another space to be able to do that. With regards to City Hall South, one of the recommendations made there is to move the Finance Department to a lease space. So if you think about it, for City Hall North, they've recommended moving Parks and Recreation out. So that would be 3 buildings. And now they're recommending for City Hall South to move the Finance Department out. So that would be a 4th building that we would need to lease. By moving the Finance Department, we would be able to reorganize the space to house our planning and building divisions and our development services administration. So we've now gone from 2 buildings that house all of our departments to 4 buildings. Next slide. I'm sorry that this slide is so small, but what this reflects is that part of the analysis that we made was the spatial needs for our short-term staffing needs and the short-term growth that we will have, and then future space needs for our future long-term growth. So for our short-term growth, we would need approximately 15,300 square feet of space. In order to accommodate our future growth, which basically takes us through year 2040, we would need approximately 23,000 square feet of space to accommodate that. Next slide. So in looking at some of the options that were provided to us as part of that interim report that was presented to the City Council, there was a few opportunities to look at some additional space in downtown. Once again, that would mean another site that we would have to be able to acquire. And so we started to look at the potential of currently vacant space within the city that we would be able to take over. So just to give you a little bit of background, in March 2020, the COVID pandemic began. A lot of our staff moved to remote work during that time in order to ensure the safety of our employees. So we ended up placing this project on hold after that initial presentation was made. And then in August of 21, the City Council provided a strategic plan update, which included the objective to research the feasibility of a new city hall to accommodate our future needs. So we began to explore vacant buildings that were located downtown, 3234 Santa Fe, which is directly behind City Hall South, was explored as the possibility of relocating our building and planning departments and development services departments. So once again, we would go from 2 buildings to 3 buildings. The building was included in bankruptcy proceedings, and so the city did put in an offer to be able to purchase that. Unfortunately, what ended up happening was that it was removed from the bankruptcy proceedings, and the property owner just did not want to sell to us after that. So we were not able to move forward with that option. The second option that we looked at in terms of vacant buildings was 6436 Oakdale Road, which is the subject of tonight's conversation. It is where the telecontact resources services is located. During the pandemic, their employees moved to remote work and never returned. So that space continues to be vacant, with the exception of a few minor areas that are leased out to a couple of nonprofits. This space has approximately 42,000 square feet of leasable space for the city. Next slide. So I've got a couple of pros and cons of the building that we're currently discussing, 6436 Oakdale Road. To provide some context for those who might not be familiar, it's located directly across the street from McDonald's and behind the 76 and the Flavors building. So as I mentioned before, it does some of the pros that I'm going to discuss. It does have 42,000 square feet of available space. If you'll recall, for staffing needs only, we need approximately 23,000 square feet to be able to accommodate our future growth. It would accommodate all of the current and future staff from City Hall North and City Hall South. Currently, we have approximately 36 staff members that work between those 2 buildings. Our council chambers would be able to accommodate a large crowd. It would be approximately 15,000 square feet. In addition, we would have the ability to do some community events to be held there as well. Something that we've been able to do within the past couple of months is hold workshops for our small businesses. We currently hold those in our council chambers, but we would love to be able to hold them in a larger venue. We would have on-site parking, so no street parking required as we currently have. Parking for our residents and for our employees. Currently, there is no parking lot associated or available at any of those 2 locations. We have built a new parking lot, but that's not easily accessible for our staff or for our residents. And so all of the parking that we have been taking up has been street parking. There's like 2 parking spots behind City Hall North that are generally available. And trust me, staff fights for those every day. So if you get there early enough, you get the good spot in the back. And I have never gotten it, so just FYI. The property owner has improved the site. They did improve it in 2012. They did some significant adjustments to all of the IT infrastructure in the building, which means that the city would not need to do that as part of our tenant improvements. It does have a backup generator for continuity of services, which is something that currently does not exist at either of our two locations. When PG&E decides that we're going to have public safety shutoffs, City Hall gets shut off as well. And then, of course, it would provide for a large break room and storage room, and it would provide for additional offices to be able to house all of our staff. A couple of cons that I have on here is number one, of course, we would be moving away from downtown. That is, I know, to our residents, a significant impact to those who have been used to being able to walk over to visit us, to pay their utility bill, to rent any of our parks and facilities. That would be a major change to that. We would leave two buildings vacant downtown where we have struggled to have some of that vacancy filled in other locations in downtown as well. The lease payments would, of course, add a burden to the city's budget. These are not costs that we want to be able to have to take on. We would have to have the general fund, the sewer fund, the water fund, and our system development fee fund cover those lease payments that in actuality, during the time that it's leased, give us no benefit. But the goal for the city is to be able to purchase that in less than 3 years. The tenant improvement costs would, of course, need to be budgeted. You know, I can say it's probably going to run between $1.5 million to $2 million. Those would be significant upgrades that would need to be made just to be able to have all of the space that we need to accommodate the staff that we anticipate to have in the future. And we would be displacing several tenants who currently lease the space. As I mentioned earlier, there is a nonprofit that currently is located there, as well as a karate school that's in that building. And then next slide. So we have reached through discussions a tentative agreement with the property owner. So we would be looking at an initial lease term of 20 years. We would be able to have an option to extend. They would give us 2 options, and they would be for an additional 10 years each. We would start with base rent that would run, and I have here 2 options. One option is to just lease the main site that excludes the event center site, which is technically where our future city hall would be. I would not recommend moving forward with option 1. We want to be able to control the entire building so that we can make all of the tenant improvements at one time for city hall. So option 2, base rent for the first year would be $35,700 for the first year per month. And the third year, should we require it, it would go all the way up to $46,200. Should we need to extend past the third year, which the goal would be for us not to have to do that, we would look at a 2% per year increase, or the local Bay Area CPI not to exceed 5 years. The effective lease date would be upon finalization of the lease agreement. And so part of my request tonight is that you allow me to continue those negotiations and be able to finalize that. The estimated occupancy or turnover date where they would officially just hand us the keys so that we can start all of our tenant improvements would be June 1st of this year. And then we would pay no base rent through October 1st as we continue to work on all of the final plans and be able to go out to bid for the tenant improvements themselves. We would begin lease commencement dates on November 1st. And of course, all of those dates really are based upon that finalization of lease agreement date. So those can move if we do not reach an agreement within the next month or so. For those that are familiar with leases, this is a triple net lease. So what does that mean? That means that the city would be responsible for all of the operating expenses, including property tax, including insurance, including utilities. The property owner would give us the right of first refusal for the first 36 months, which means we would have the option to purchase, and we would be the first to be offered that option and be able to refuse. So for a 36-month period, we would have the certainty that should she decide to sell early, we would have the right to be able to purchase first. And then currently, one of the other businesses that's operating from that site is the American Event Center. The American Event Center is owned by the property owner. She holds events like weddings and other special events there. So she would like the ability to continue operating, which means we would basically share our city council chambers with her for that period of time. We would operate this as a sublease for approximately 3 years.
Maricela, is there a guarantee that they will sell it to us after the 3 years?
Yes, if you reach an agreement.
Okay.
And could be soon.
And could be sooner if if we're able to obtain all of the funding we need to be able to purchase it.
Okay, thank you.
So
Yeah.
next slide.
Question. So the cost, do we have a cost of like at the time that we would think about purchasing?
No, because it would be based on the appraisal
rate.
at that point in time.
Okay.
So as I mentioned earlier, the lease funding would come from our general fund, sewer, water, and system development fee fund. And so the last item I have for you today is just my recommendation. We are in severe need of space. We're in need to add staff. I just don't have the ability to do that right now. And I could not recommend that to the city council because I don't have a place to be able to house them. So I am recommending that the city council consider authorizing me to continue the negotiations and finalize a standard single-tenant lease with the property owner at 6436 Oakdale Road, which we are proposing to be the future site of Riverbank City Hall. And just to add, staff has toured the site various times. We are looking forward, should council approve, to being all under one roof, which would add to our ability to collaborate with each other without having to walk across the street and wonder if somebody's there or not. We would immediately be able to see that, to have additional space to be able to collaborate, not just with amongst each other, but with members of our public as well, and to have adequate space to be able to house different events, including those that we've been co-hosting with the Riverbank Chamber and with other organizations. So with that, I am available for questions, should council or the public have those.
Does council have any questions before I open it up?
So I have been, we take a look at building up, putting on a
So we did evaluate that. Of course, at the only option we would have, because City Hall North was not designed to be a two-story building, is that either one, whichever one we decide would need to go up, we would have to relocate staff to a different location. We currently don't have somewhere where we would be able to do that. And then we would have to totally tear down and start over. So that would be possibility there. For City Hall North, honestly, we would probably have to go about 4 stories high to be able to house all of the staff that's currently there, plus have space for additional staff. City Hall South, we didn't evaluate whether that one was built to house a second story, but we would still have to relocate all of the staff. And have to, of course, in either building, you'd have to take ADA into consideration. So now you're adding costs to be able to house everybody and put in all of the ADA components that we need, like an elevator, et cetera.
Thank you.
Okay, so I wrote down a couple notes, so please bear with me. Apologize. Maricela, you did a really good job. You actually have quite a bit of the timeline that I had written down. I kind of wanted to share that just in case it wasn't shared here. So I won't repeat some of those. let's see, which ones haven't we done? So February 2020, we did receive the consultant's report for the current near future city staff space needs. In those recommendations, Maricela did point out we wanted to move out Parks and Rec, Finance Department to an alternate location, and then remodeling completely City Hall North and South. And then we wanted to seek alternatives for the construction of a combined City Hall. And I highlighted it because the goal was to keep it downtown. That was the goal there. And so we have been exploring a lot of different options. That makes sense, right? And so we've looked at the Del Rio office that has only 2,500 square feet. That's just kitty corner there to the sheriff's department, which would house 6 employees. Let's see, that would help Parks and Rec, but it wouldn't help the finance department, right? So there's, from what I've been scouting and looking, I don't see any other buildings that are available to the city to purchase downtown. We currently have 1 employee that's teleworking currently right now. So that we don't have space for that employee at the moment. So the need is absolutely there. I wrote down some pros and some cons too. So pros, it will have the available space at this new location. We'll obviously have the parking there. It was built in 1988 and it was renovated in 2012. The Stan RT Route 60, it does connect downtown to Clarabelle. So we have that access. Cons, this is where I want to kind of get into a little bit because there's some issues in the contract. I would love us to negotiate and get a better deal here though. You covered the guaranteed purchase, so appreciate that. I think the 1.3 million that we're about to spend for the next 3 years, can we negotiate that? That has to go towards the purchase price. So if we can get that wording in there, that would just show a commitment from their end as well. The 0.85 per square foot, it's showing it for the 42,000, but we're only using 27,162 because they're going to still stay in there for the next 3 years. That doesn't make sense to me. So if someone can kind of explain, so we're gonna rent out the entire 42,000 square feet at the 85 cents, but we're only using the 27,162.
I believe during the negotiation, that was going to be a sublease from us.
Right.
After we do the 85 cents per square.
Right.
And then they sublease their portion from us.
So they'll pay us.
And they'll pay us.
Okay.
But again,
That's
don't
correct. So
I don't want to have a discussion, but
Yeah.
that the goal would be to move as rapid, if we're going to go do this.
Right.
Rapidly as possible.
Okay.
To prevent paying more than we should.
Okay.
In the future.
Appreciate that.
So the 42,000 square feet, yes, that would be for the entire site at 85 cents per square foot.
Right.
But we would have access to it all because we would have our city council chambers in that additional space.
Okay.
Remember, that's going to be a combined use for approximately 3 years.
Okay.
But that we would have access to it because the city council chambers would be located.
So we'll have an event center and then our chambers in that same area kind of
Yes.
just blocked off. Gotcha.
That's correct.
Okay, gotcha. And then I would like to negotiate, 3 years is way too long for them to continue to be in there. If we're trying to be secure, keep stuff safe there. I would like to negotiate that down to 2. So we have enough time to do these improvements. Can someone go over the segment where it said they had the signage on property, right? What does that mean? They can just put any kind of signs on the property. Can someone kind of go over that?
Do you have this specific area where that was located?
I'll let the other council members make comments and I'll pull it up on the contract here. One of the other ones, the data server room. So they don't want to pay rent for the next 10 years, but we have a triple net. So does that mean we'll be covering the electricity for that room?
Yeah, so the majority of it runs the basic or the full part of the building. The data server room is what they particularly use for their staff who's working remotely.
Okay.
So it really isn't something that's going to impact us as a whole.
Okay.
So it's not really going to take up any more electricity than what's already being taken up.
But it will be pulling electricity, right?
It will pull some, but
Okay.
we will, that's something that we can.
Something kind of evaluate. Okay, awesome. And I think I have maybe one more
Can
comment
we
here.
address that after public? Anybody, we'll kind of come back to
Yeah.
to have more.
Okay, I think I'm all,
Anybody else have something dire before we put it out to the public? want-
I can wait till later, but it's up to you. So
Right, no, I
whatever.
do, and we are going to be able to.
So let me, is it okay if I just finish my comment then? Because I'm at the very end here. So I think, and I've been speaking to the businesses downtown, some opposed, some are for it. But make no mistake, even if we did move out of town, the city will continue to be supportive of the downtown, hosting those events. I don't want them to feel like we've been, forgotten them and we don't support them. So
That's out of downtown, not out
Yeah.
of town.
out of downtown, sorry.
Okay. All right, I'd like the public, if you have any comments, please come on up.
Good evening, Mary Lomax, 2112 Park Ridge Drive. And I have more of a question. I'd like to know if a traffic study has been done, and if so, if that's available to the public. Just driving down Oakdale Road to go to the supermarket, sometimes I take my life in my hands with the drivers going into McDonald's or going into the gas station or the other business there. And so is that traffic study available to the public?
So a traffic study was not performed. The reason being is that at its peak, that building housed approximately 200 employees. That has significantly decreased since the majority, that initial MCI building no longer has all those employees that are there. It then shrunk down to probably less than 100 employees with telecontact. And with us at our peak, we're looking at maybe 90 employees max.
And that was prior to McDonald's and prior to Flavors.
Actually, MCI was there during McDonald's. I had family members that worked there. So McDonald's was located there. And yes, that is prior to Flavors, but the majority of the traffic will be going onto Oakdale Road rather than accessing it from Patterson Road.
Right. So my concern is selfishly is Oakdale Road. So there will not be a traffic study performed for that.
No, there will not be a traffic study.
Thank you.
Although, she stole all my thunder because that was what the issue I was going to bring up. Because it's not just a matter of congestion, it's a matter
Name and.
of
where you live?
safety.
Okay,
It's a matter of safety.
okay.
Because it's crazy, the left-hand turn, the right, you don't, for one thing, the street's not designated clearly where the turn is. So you have people coming into the McDonald's who don't know, and we are coming, we can't tell if they're going to, are they going to the gas station? Are they going to so it's just a very not just congested, but it's a very confusing part of the road now. And I know you only have 90 staff, but if people are going to be coming in and out of those offices to pay bills or whatever, you're going to have additional traffic other than just those cars of the members or the city employees. So take that under consideration, please.
Thank you.
My name's Randy Richardson, 3126 Stanislaus Street is the church that I pastor, and I've been there, so this August will be 3 years. And one of the things I've really noticed about Riverbank is that you can't stop growth and how things are growing. I've even had to go to 2 services now because of the parking. The building that we're in is from 1926, just 2 years after Riverbank became a city. And so I'm Sharon, I'm not against this at all. I'm all for it because I don't think how you can stop it. But I just wanted to share a bit of my heart because it's the wine and cheese festival has been struggling. There's different things that are, and the council and everybody's doing, and we're trying all these different things. But really what's happening is something that's inevitable, I believe, is that Riverbank is expanding, and really to connect the community and the community to be together as one. You just can't stay over here, and because a lot of the development's happening on the other side of the track. So there's that pull. I'm even feeling a pull that maybe I need, I was looking into getting some property thinking that, if there's 3,200 homes are going to be developed over there, Costco and another high school and all the different things that we know we need a place of worship over there. So maybe I'm thinking that I need to get some property to move over to that part of Riverbank as it continues to grow that way. But when I first heard about the city hall leaving downtown, I was just I felt so sad. I just felt sad. It's just my heart because somehow you grow and you develop and new people come in and you want the community to be together and you want everyone involved, like Love Riverbank. You want everyone to come together. So that's not just people in the old town, but it's also including all the ones that are moving in. And so the ones that have been here before have to be mature enough. I have to be mature enough to say, okay, you know what? So am I going to just be like this, just snuggle down and not want to grow and allow Riverbank to become in the offices and all those that are working in the city to can be able to thrive because of their space? Or am I going to just swallow it, what needs to be swallowed up and participate and watch this happen? Because that's what's happening. Riverbank is growing and so it's inevitable these things are going to have to happen. So just wanted to share a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other? Evelyn? Thank you for being here tonight, Evelyn.
It's Evelyn Halbert, and I live downtown, right here in our downtown. My family's been here 4 generations. And before anybody else says anything about forgetting us down here, that already happened. This is a big example of that. Nobody talked to us down here. Nobody's talked to the residents. Businesses, I don't know. Nobody did any studies, nothing, no questions, no nothing. You just did it. Because nobody really wanted to help, they didn't really care. My side of downtown doesn't even have a voice. Because they don't live here, they live out on the other side of town. This, the questions I have on this is you keep referring to this $35,700 a month fee, your lease, your base, but that's not the amount you're going to be paying every month. Because you're going to have to add the $6,000 every month for the costs, which your operating expenses, which says that it includes property taxes, building insurance, common areas, roofs, structural utilities, and the premises. But it also says including but not limited to. So what else is in there that they're not putting down here? How much more will it be if they're not showing everything that you're going to be paying for? And there's too many things in here that say including not limited or various, so you really don't know how much you're paying. There's also a part in your lease here that also states that there's a rent adjustment addendum in there that allows for provisions for that rate to be adjusted. For how much and how often and why? Like you said, you're going to use the general fund, sewer fund, water fund. I can tell you right now, you just raised the sewer fund and it's going up automatically. The water fund, you're already going to do a rate for again. You got a lot of people, especially down here, that are not going to be able to afford it. But you're putting whether or not they can afford their next month's rent, or they have to choose between their house and groceries, over whether or not you can't find another way to work this out with your staffing. Nobody looked at any other options except this. I know you looked at what, buying a property or something like that. I mean, Del Rio would be a good place for it, but what's wrong with having some of your employees work outside of the office? A lot of places do that now. You didn't even look into to see what it would cost or what the savings would be. I question whether or not on a Prop 218 water and sewer, you can even use those rates to pay for a lease. I think you need to slow down You've been doing this for how long now? And you never even bothered to ask us or tell us anything. We're the ones that are gonna be impacted because we're gonna lose all of that. Downtown is where all the a lot of the seniors are, senior housing. Ones that have been here for a long time. A lot of them don't drive. They can't drive out there. They can't drive at night to go to meetings. They're the ones that are gonna get impacted. And all I'm saying, I'm not saying don't do it. I'm saying put a hold on it and look at other options. And talk to the people down here. A lot of them don't even know what's going on. But don't say that we're not, that you're not forgetting us. Because I haven't seen them.
Thank you.
Good evening, Ramon R. Bermudez, 6261 Roselle Avenue. For 30 years now in Riverbank. How is that? Oh, I'm so proud of myself. Anyway, there was brought to my attention about this parking lot that are in that possible site. And unfortunately for you, I'm gonna have to do a lot of fixing in that parking lot because on your hurry, whoever made the big decisions of accepting flavors, the marijuana place dispenser, well, they closed the back of it because the controversy they had about the children going for their classes is not karate, by the way, is taekwondo. That's their main martial art. And they closed the way out towards the back of the building of flavors. They closed that up because they didn't want the children to come over and see that they were selling drugs in there. Marijuana is still a drug, right? So for the parents to protect their children on the site of all the pot smokers, well, that has to be open because it's going to be more traffic than what it is now. It's been a trouble since then, since you closed it, because wanting to pass the site of the flavors next to the gas station. Now it's Rocket. Well, if it's been a controversy all of these months about not having the proper parking, about the proper entrance and exit to a public place, that wasn't it. They were trying to stop him of even having the school in there. And the instructor was mistreated around that area of those months, of prove it or not, of flavors. Well, what a kind of solution? It's kind of dumb. To tell you the truth, you close the exit and entrance to one place, site to where the children play sports. But you cannot go this way because there is flavors in here if you drive on the front of it. It goes to the side, it goes way to the side. Don't have to touch the terrain from flavors, but you shouldn't have closed that because of emergency reasons. You won't be able to evacuate all the people that might be in there gathered at one time. You can go and see it. It's a piece of plastic, orange, right across the driveway because it's not a road. Right across the driveway, in and out, behind the gas station. You can go there from the parking lot of the karate school, or what they call it, but it's taekwondo school. Well, you cannot go in or out of there anymore. Ever since then, we're going to what, 2-3 years? That's cruel and unusual because you shouldn't endanger any people from mainly a main road that is in and out of a place to where even children are going in there by the bunches. And so it should not be. It should not be. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Any other comments? I'm bringing it back to the council.
Mayor, sorry. We had 3 submitted comments written prior to the meeting.
Okay,
So I will read those for the record. We have a comment from resident Nancy Hughes. Please consider postponing the decision to relocate the city offices until all options have been explored and public input has been received. The downtown area is enhanced by the city offices. The second comment is from Richard and Christine Homer. We respectfully request that you postpone any decision to relocate City Hall until all other options have been explored. Relocating City Hall from the downtown area is removing the anchor business, which will surely have a negative effect on the newly renovated downtown area. The city has spent millions of dollars to attract new and vibrant businesses, and the loss of City Hall will be detrimental to the growth of this area. There are several options for creating additional office space, from expanding current buildings to building a new building on the land that the city already owns downtown. In addition, it is not prudent management of taxpayer dollars to spend $35,000 a month on a lease for a building to house city offices when the city already owns buildings that house city offices. Please consider postponing this decision until all options have been explored and public input has been received. And the last comment is from Lana Clayton. It was just brought to my attention about the changes the city is wanting to make as to the location of the city offices. I wanted to let you know some feedback in which I definitely agree with. I feel this needs to be put out into the public so that more people know about it. Everything about it, including where the money is coming from and why the changes need to be made. Is there any way that this can be put out into the public before you have a meeting so that people have enough time to really read? This would also give people ample time to put it onto their calendar to come to the meeting if they would like. There are so many questions, not only who is funding this and how, but also what will you do with the buildings once they are empty? So much money has been put into the downtown area, and without all the people coming to make the payment downtown, what is going to happen with the downtown visibility? Is all of this in the plan? I think it needs to be posted and shared onto the Riverbank neighborhoods and the Riverbank community pages for all to see.
Thank you. All right, well, I'm bringing it back for council's comments, discussion, and then recommendations in the future. Councilmember Uribe, do you have additional?
No additional, thank you.
Mayor, if I could take the opportunity to answer Councilmember Uribe's question regarding the signage.
Yeah, oh, sorry, yes, that was page 134, and that, does that just extend to the sublease too, or is that just us as the tenant?
That would be us as the tenant.
Just us, not
Yes.
to the sublease, perfect, thank you, that's all I have.
Councilmember Hernandez?
Yeah, I think a few things are true that this item has been on city council's agenda for some time. So there has been opportunities for community to have input, but that being said, I think it's also true that the community wants to be listened to and wants to listen as well. And that, I mean, is shown today with us moving today's council meeting. And I think it's also true that, like was said, we do need more space and need community involvement. So that being said, I do agree we do need more space, but when it's appropriate, I will make a motion to postpone this item to next week's agenda to allow for more community input, specifically from the downtown area.
Thank you.
I do agree that we should let the community have input, and we should not make a decision tonight.
Vice Mayor?
I just wanted to thank some of the comments tonight. I find that they are very true, and Pastor, thank you for your comments. I too am kind of the same feeling as you, and I like the word heartbroken was one of the words that you used. Although I completely understand the need for more space, I just really struggle with moving the municipal hub from downtown. I also completely struggle with one of the lease items of sharing the space. If we're going to rent it, then we need to rent it. It's like, I'm going to rent a house, but I have to leave this space for somebody else. Kind of have a hard time with that. And change is hard. Change is really hard. And although I embrace change, and sometimes, although change is hard to do, it ends up being better. But I don't know if I'm quite ready for that yet.
Thank you. For me, we lost a tool, RDA. And that in the loss of RDA gave us, or tied our hands from doing things like this type of development downtown. If you take a look at Tracy, how many of you been to Tracy on the council? Great building, huh?
Yep.
RDA, over $30 million. We don't have $30 million, but we're going to be needing that type of a space. Can you take a look at Ceres, a lot smaller part of the community center, almost 20 million. We're not going to spend 20 million. If we authorize Metasela to continue, we're not saying we're abandoning downtown yet. We're still giving her the option to move forward in discussions, negotiation. Nothing can happen before what, 1 November? Excuse me, 1 November. So we can have additional public hearings on it. There's pros and cons. The pros are we're allowed to expand and we have proper spaces for everybody. Proper spaces for the planning commission, proper spaces for the council members, proper spaces for the mayor, and all the others that you need. I don't like meeting individuals in a restaurant or get toasted. I'd rather it be in an office where I have witnesses and I have staff around if I need something. We don't have that luxury at all. Okay, we could go on top of the roof. I guess that would be a good one. If we build up, consider the prevailing wages that we would have to pay, which is a lot more than what Ceres paid, a lot greater than Tracy paid. So, and the cost of materials have escalated. With a small $60 million wastewater treatment plant is almost doubled in a matter of 8 years. No, 10 years. 10 years. So what would it be today? Today is the cheapest it will be if we move forward. If we wait, it's going to be more expensive. If we authorize Metasela to move forward and we get to the point of, okay, let's sign it, then we can make that decision and not make your efforts moot, but at least we can move forward. If we move forward, I would recommend that we purchase instead of leasing as soon as we can, because that again would be the cheapest for today. If we allow it to move forward another year, another 3 years, it's going to be more expensive. Give you a point. In 1993, we sold a house in Modesto for $80,000. Zillow says today it's $507,000. And that is, it hasn't moved. I mean, it's still 1,315 square feet. They didn't do anything to the interior. The exterior is overgrown, but it increased in value. Everything is going up. We have a population that is booming. We're going to be at 10 billion people in the world. Again, we need to accommodate how we can staff to move forward. I'm passionate about this. But we did look at downtown and what it would take to raise or razz a building and then build up. It's not as deep as we would like. Again, it would be 4 stories and it wouldn't carry us past 2040. But we're at the will of the council of what we want to do. If we just pause it for 6 months, then we have to renegotiate. I would bet it'd be more expensive. The longer we wait, the more expensive it would be. So, are there any comments more before I ask for the recommendation?
It would be great to get, I know we've thrown around ideas and creative options for should City Hall move, how we would use the buildings, but it would be great to have some tangible options when you have conversations now that, it's become more public. And to be clear, I want to, my motion will be to postpone 2 weeks, to be able to hear these concerns from the community.
I agree. I think we need to have more public comment because I don't think the public had a chance to hear the reasons why we're trying to make the decisions on moving. And everyone's liking because everybody likes where we are right now. I do myself, but looking at the future, what are our options? And I think the public needs to hear more of that.
So I kind of agree with everybody on here. So I think if we do postpone it, we will give more time for the residents to kind of hear more of it. But I think the mayor is right. This just kind of moves it forward into negotiations. And that's what we need to do. We need to make sure we're negotiating correctly, whether we're moving towards that lease to purchase where it is included in the purchase price, or we just go straight buyout for it.
Or we don't take it.
Right, or we don't take it. That's the part. That's what we're authorizing is Maricela to do that for us and make sure we're being the stewards of your guys' money. Make sure we're doing the correct purchase. This sublease is. I agree with the vice mayor. It's too long. 3 years is way too long. I think for build out, realistically, it's going to be about 2 years. So I would love to shrink it if we have to have this sublease agreement, which I would prefer not to. But again, we would be authorizing Maricela to negotiate that for us. And if the terms aren't agreeable, we can always do something else, right? So.
And if the price comes in too much,
Right.
because we need an appraisal, it's not, today, we're not making a decision to move. Today, we're making the decision to start negotiating to see if the possibility of us moving. Now, if Senator Gill can get RDA reinstated, we should be able to bring it back and start building more affordable housing and more civic areas like Tracy did and like Ceres did. So, there's a lot that can be done, but we don't have that tool. And we did look at this, and this has not been a secret. This has been part of our strategic plan since 2018. And although we've discussed it, this is the first time we're hearing from the public that you don't want it. Let's continue moving. Thank you. I can see now. But at the same time, Maricela, if you could arrange for a more detailed conversation with the public in the future, I wouldn't say in 2 weeks. I don't think that's enough time to start getting the word out that we are going to have it, but it would be good to have it in the next couple of months, to sit down, have a public hearing on it. And so the surprises are whether or not we're going to move forward or not. Because if we stop all the process now, I think that we could lose an advantage, whether we take it or not.
So I know we're going to be having your state of the city. Maybe we have a segment there just focused on that, because I would love to have so I'll also be making a motion here in a little bit, which is going to be focused on having that additional hearing, but also having Maricela move forward with negotiations with that straight purchase option, if we can get it, or that lease option of the first 3 years going towards the purchase price. And then, and then adjusting that 3-year sublease to a 2. So that's the kind of motion I would be making.
Comments? Any more?
No more comments.
Okay. All right. Is that a motion?
I'll make it a motion.
I'll second.
So
Read the motion.
yeah, and I'd like to propose a second motion.
But I want to hear that one.
All right.
So my motion is,
So just a second.
No,
Let
I
him
wanna hear
read
that
it,
one.
and then you can
Yeah.
do your motion. Okay, you're
So
saying that we move forward. And
Repeating it.
then yes.
So, okay, so my motion will be to have another public hearing, whether it's at the mayor's state of the city within a month or 2. And move forward with negotiations for a straight purchase or at least the lease option to be going towards the purchase price. And if the sublease stays, it goes from 3 to a 2.
So I'd like to make a motion purely based on community's input. The need for, when the date for the next community hearing will be, or public hearing will be, and then also to have tangible options for should City Hall move, how the space will be used. So this motion is to postpone this item to next meeting's agenda to allow for all of that.
Are you asking for a postponement or a continuance?
Continuance.
Continuance. Thank you. We have that motion. Is there a second on the second? Seeing none, we'll go back to the first option, which was conduct a public hearing in the future, whether it's around the state of the city, before the state of the city or during it, or somewhere around that, and commence negotiations to
Negotiate.
negotiate within 1 to 2 years, see what we can apply that to the purchase price and get the sublease from 3 years to 2 years, correct?
Yes, sir.
And there was a second. We're not getting rid of the public input. That's still going to be, the decision won't be made until prior to November after the public input.
Right.
And we'll address anything that you had asked on it.
Councilmember Uribe,
Yes.
Councilmember Hernandez,
No.
Councilmember Barbara Martinez,
I think I abstain.
Vice Mayor Jones Cruz,
No.
Mayor Brian.
Yes. Doesn't carry. So we just, at this point, we can't go forward with this. Okay, that's it. Thank you. All right, we're going to go to staff comments.
I think council has heard enough from staff for today, so there are no comments for tonight.
Councilmember Hernandez.
Let's see. The only comment I have is last Wednesday was the first meeting of Friends of Jacob Myers Park in quite some time. There was a lot of discussion and a good attendance. I believe about a dozen or so people there. Among the discussion items was a youth committee that is potentially moving forward, the possibility for applying for grants to support some of the projects, and needing to renew a nonprofit status for the group. So we're working on those things.
Thank you. Councilmember Uribe,
No comments tonight.
Councilmember Barbara Martinez.
I just wanted to give an update from the Stanislaus Homeless Alliance, or SHA. Stan County is facing a shortage of available housing units at 34,344 units are needed by the year of 2031, which is only 7 years away. And some statistics are from the Housing Stanislaus 2023 Vision Valley, is that households spend more than 30% of their income on housing at 35.1% of mortgage holders and 48.4% are renters. And it's felt that wages are growing at slower pace than housing costs and housing development growth, all at a slower pace than the population growth. So there was a proposal that was made by STEP, the Stanislaus Equity Partners, and they have an idea of land banking entity, the Stanislaus Housing Land Trust. It would secure land out of the speculative real estate market and hold it in trust to serve as a long-term community asset for housing the low to moderate income in any community. And also there was a proposal about a fund entity which would pool capital to secure and develop property, provide secure loans for low to moderate income individuals. And so there will be more about this coming in the near future. Thank you.
Vice Mayor.
I have no comments.
I have no comment. Next city council meeting will be held on Tuesday, March 12th and it'll be at our city council chambers. This meeting's adjourned.